We're hoping that this is going to work. Hello, come on back in the room. Hello, hello. Hi. Let's see. Hi, guys. Hello. Thanks for coming back, guys. Hopefully, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see me? Hello. Thanks for joining. There you are, Brian. Let's hope this works.
Okay.
Can you
There
see
you,
me?
yeah, I did see Sierra. You want to, or do you still want to?
We can go. We can go this
Eh,
way
okay. You know me, I'm
because I
old
got
school.
you,
It should
and
be
we see
ladies
each other.
first, though.
It should be ladies first.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, it's okay. I think I
Okay.
think I have you. We should go because people have been really great to
Yeah.
join us again.
Impatient. So here, let me get
Yeah,
my.
and I think folks are patient. And guys, I do think it's on my end with the internet. So thanks for coming back. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
as I was saying in the beginning, I recall Brian first seeing your Instagram about how you were planning to participate in the March on Washington,
Hmm.
and you sent that out. And I believe my understanding of that is after you sent that out, that you also heard from others that they would be there and you guys met up.
Yeah.
So I do want to get into the March talk, but because I think this is great because I think it's family members here, a lot of the CQ family, a lot of our friends are here. But first, if you could introduce yourself and just kind of share a little bit about yourself before we talk about the
Absolutely.
March.
Yeah, absolutely. For those that don't know me, name is Bryan Young, and my IG is Bryan Young Creative. And and then my mascot. I thought my door was closed. I hear my dog. But no, my name is Bryan Young, and IG is Bryan Young Creative, and uh, I'm professionally. I've been a automotive designer. I'm located in suburban Detroit, and I've been in the industry for over 25 years with two tours at General Motors and Ford, and so a deep design background, but I'm also an artist, a fine artist, and photography and branding. So just like my IG handle, Bryan Young Creative. But I've grown up in a family of uh, creative types, not just art, but I have a cousin who is an actress, and she's been pursuing that for, gosh, a portion of her life. My sister's a chef, and she went to school and she trained and everything, so she's creative in that manner. But you know, I've also had a very deep passion for social justice and uh, fight against inequality. And I'm usually pretty jokey, but that's something I don't play around with. And I grew up down south. I was born on an army base in Alabama. Grew up in Alabama and Tennessee until my parents took us up to Cleveland, where I grew up there, and then I moved to Detroit. Uh, for university and to start my career. And for whatever reason, God's always brought me back to Detroit. I've lived in Germany and come back to Detroit. Lived in Iowa, back to
That's interesting.
Detroit. So I have this wide range of professional experience, and then family wise, I've got three kids of my own, and then our blended family, we've got six. Uh, and so I've got three boys, and my two older boys are multi-ethnic, both black and white, and my younger son is black and black. I don't know, but yeah, but but my extended family, my whole family is a very diverse family. I grew up with my one uncle is Latino, and my one cousin, he's part black, white, and Mexican. I have Indian, and so I've grown up in this family, especially down south back
Mm-hmm.
then, and even before I was born. Uh, that was, I'm sure it was a challenge for my elders because they recognize skin tone, but that more importantly, they recognize love in the other people. But yeah, yeah, and that's that's me in a nutshell. Try to keep it short, but yeah, yeah,
No, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I think, being that a lot of us have met on Instagram, have met
yeah,
through Club Quarantine CQ, that we
yeah,
are getting to learn each other. But
yeah,
I think now we're starting to learn what careers we're in, how we can, folks connecting in different
yeah,
ways. So it's great to also hear about your family and your background.
yeah. Thanks.
Yes. And so I wanted to know, and when you posted that, it was like, this is really, great to see that I know folks who are going, but why the march? And when did you decide that, yes, I wanted to be a part of the march this year? And was this your first time?
uh, first time. There was other opportunities that came and I didn't go. I remember the Million Man March back in. I'm bad on the year, but I think it was. I want to say nine. It was early to mid '90s, and I had
Mm,
just moved up to Detroit, and I was at university, and the art school I went to here in Detroit was it was. I jokingly tell people when I went there I had hair, and when I graduated it was all gone. But I I missed the Million Man March,
okay.
and if I'm not mistaken, there's others that impacted me, but uh, why this one? And when I made the decision, I
Mhm.
made the decision when I saw Reverend Al Sharpton at George Floyd's eulogy or giving his eulogy in Minneapolis. When we were sitting here watching, and when he said we're going to be leading a march on my on the Lincoln Memorial, and just me knowing like my history, I knew when he said the date, he didn't even have to finish anything else. I knew that was the anniversary of
Yeah.
Martin Luther King's march for jobs and freedom. And I automatically, not knowing any details, I just picked up my phone and made a hotel reservation. And then I text my sister in Cleveland, "Hey, yo, who else in the family?" And like, we have our
Yeah.
CQ family, but I reached like my family is very active,
Okay.
and I reached out and said, "What family members do you think would go?" And I'm well aware that we're in a pandemic because my thing is don't get it twisted. Just because we're going for social justice,
We still need to
wrong
be
cat.
safe.
Yeah, somebody cough on me sideways, I'm gonna be looking at you like, so so yeah, I made that decision. What was that? Yeah, I can't remember when, but it's been some months, and it's just been sitting on me because of the conversation. I don't know. There's conversations any parent should dread. I tell you what, I dreaded talking to my kids, my 13-year-old about what was going on. That I'll be frank, that conversation was harder than talking to him about sex. Because
You know,
how do I explain to a 13-year-old who he's like, he said some hurt, things from his heart. And
right.
he's like, I don't know why do white people hate us? I just can't, I hate I'm like, well, hold up, son. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. You do know your mother is, so you can't. And I show him picture. I'm like, do you see our background on my side growing up? And so I had to. Not only did I have to have that conversation with him and the 10-year-old and an 8-year-old about what's going on in the world, but then specifically for my two older boys, it was another layer of not all, quite frankly, not all white people have hatred in their heart.
Right.
Their hatred and bigotry and just injustice comes in all forms. But unfortunately, we're dealing with a lot of history here. That so to answer your one question, that's when I knew I was going. I didn't even know any. They didn't even have any
Yeah.
details because I went on their website and I felt like the people at National Action Network were probably sitting there like, wait, what? We're doing what? Oh, we better get this organized. And then what drew me to post a video was that Kai actually, and I give you'll talk to her later on. I give her the credit or the blame, but we were communicating. I can't remember. I said it in one of the in club quarantine that I think I did or on some live. Hey, I'm going to the march or that coincides or whatever, and I think Sierra said, "Yo, I'm going too," and then
Okay.
Kai was like, "I'm going," and so I'm like, "Oh wow!" So
Yes.
there are other members, and I can't remember who else reached out to me that felt moved.
Yeah.
What can you do beyond just being pissed off in your home? And Kai and I were talking days before I put that video out, and she's like, "Yeah, you gotta do a video." And I'm like, contrary to what everybody may think, I don't feel comfortable in front of the camera. I'm
Well, you
like,
did an amazing job.
just put me behind the scenes. But I swear I felt, what can I do?
You
And so
felt kind of compelled.
yeah, and it took, I'd be honest with you, and I haven't shared this with anybody, that like minute, 20-second video,
Hmm.
that took me, I think that took me 12 tries because
Okay.
I kept getting choked up and it didn't help. Like I was down here in my home studio working and it's getting me now because I had my, depending on how I work and what I work on, music has brought all of us together. Music's been
Right.
instrumental in my creative process. And so then I had like, um, I had Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes on with Teddy and lead, Wake Up Everybody.
Yes.
And I had a whole series of songs like that, Sounds of Blackness. Um, and then it hit me when Sam Cooke and I'm just sitting here like, dude, there is no way to express the fear and the rage and the frustration.
Right.
And so I just started. I had no script, and I didn't know what I was going to say, and I was just like, all right, well, boom, let's roll. And then I don't know, first couple of tries, I'm crying, and I'm like, you know what, I got it. Okay, pause, and then I told Kai, she was like, Kai was, well, when are you gonna? If I'm not mistaken, one of our conversations, she's like, are you gonna put that? I'm like, I'll get around to. I swear, I felt like, all right, God, stop nudging me. I'm trying to let it.
You have a lot of folks kind of like pushing you, right? Like, and supporting you,
Yeah.
but pushing you. Like, okay.
Yeah. But that night, I was just like, all right, the last one, I was like, hold it together, just record, boom, and then put it out. And then the next day, like even like some of my family members, my one aunt in Tennessee who
Mhm.
she's a substitute teacher, and still the anyway, just the impact that just putting that out there that I was going, that the impact that had alone. And I understand everybody,
Yes.
everybody, let me move up. Everybody wasn't able to go, but the way I see it is that there was a lot of people, and I'm sitting here like, okay, I'm no mathematician, but I know somebody in this crowd has got coronavirus, COVID-19. But a friend of mine, he's a college instructor, and they had broken up at the college in Iowa that he's at, broken up these COVID parties. And I'm sitting up here like people are going to thinking, I'm annoyed. I'm going to go back to the bar or whatever. And then they catch it. And I'm sitting up here, heaven forbid, I prayed over all of us. I'm like, heaven forbid, if I catch this monstrosity of a pandemic, I'd rather catch it trying to do something good for all
Yes.
of our children than being a butthead going to a bar or a movie or what have you. So that's what led to that, and then we all connected, and
Great.
yeah. So yeah,
Well, I think when we saw the first protest, right? The first week, we were
yeah,
like, okay, you know, we're like just, you know, dealing with COVID and being and protected, but we needed to go out and march for justice. We needed to
yeah,
be there. And so in going out, we were hoping that people were going to be protected. But then we also knew that it was a chance. So, you know, you
yeah.
guys went out, you're protected, you had your mask. So once you got there, if you could share like how many family members you did have, and then like what did you like? What was that moment that you were like, this is why I'm here? Did you have? I'm sure it was a lot of moments, but is it one that stuck out in your mind? Like this is why I came to the march, and this makes it worthwhile.
Well, we were uh, well on a okay on a lighter note, seeing our the CQ members, um, that was great. It was like meeting fellow CQ members that are genuine and authentic. And I've often shared one of my Bryanisms with people is that um, eventually the pretenders will fall away.
Mhm.
You know, people who aren't real. And so I swear, meeting Kai and Sierra and Shaka, I swear I felt like I was with my family.
Oh,
And I
beautiful.
know like when we got there, Kai, she was down the street from our hotel, and forgive me if I'm putting too much business out there, Kai, but I just wanted to make sure that she was safe when we got there, and I checked with my family, and they were like, "Oh, we're going over to Black Lives Matter Plaza, and so make sure she's cool." And so we walked over, and it was just like I'm just like, "Hey, you stay, you know." I was raised in the South, so dude walks curbside, woman walks, and I'd make sure
And we
that
appreciate
was.
that. Thank you.
Uh, so sorry, I'm what hit me, what struck a chord with me, why I was there. It was two things, and that night, that Thursday night, we got there and walked down to Black Lives Matter Plaza. I'd never been to DC, and I don't know. I'm pretty sure a lot of us hadn't.
Okay.
So I've flown through DC, but I've only seen the airports. But being at Black Lives Matter Plaza, this is kind of I guess you could say a lighter note of what hit me. It was like I'm standing there, and what hit me was, if you guys remember that picture of John Lewis standing, and that was like a gut punch.
I had a feeling you was going to say that one.
And the one that got me was when we were at the march on Friday. And I posted a picture and I posted a video today because I forgot I had shot just like a 10-second video. Everybody had these graphic art billboards of George Floyd. And I don't know where they got them. I don't know if it was planned, but we're walking, we're trying to make our way over to, quite frankly, we were there protesting, but all of us were like, this is great, but let's make sure we are away from people. And we
Okay.
walked around and to see like just unprepared, or it was unplanned, I should say. There was, I think it was like 4 or 5 people, and they all stood there with the George Floyd uh,
Mhm.
posters together.
Yes.
And at the same time, or around that time, George Floyd's brother and I think his sister were speaking, and that hit me. And you know, I that hit me because that could every time this stuff has happened, I think back on a we don't have enough time for me to go into all the details of any police interactions or interactions I've had, especially when I moved to Iowa, and I was the first African American hired at the company I worked out there, and in a leadership role.
Mm.
And I just remember pulling up to the gas station the first day, and I my spidey sense was tingling. I'm like, oh, and I see these, Caucasian farmers sitting there just, and I'm thinking, what could they be viewing?
Okay.
Here's a brother. He's got this Audi with Michigan plates. What the hell is he doing here? And so I nobody told me to, but I went and diffused the situation. Just, hey, how you guys doing? I'm working, blah, blah, blah. So seeing those George Floyd images, hearing his family speak, that I thought standing where John Lewis stood the night before, knowing, he was the battle he was facing. Yeah,
And I know that,
go ahead. Yeah,
and I know that, I know you have the mask that says "Good Trouble,"
yeah,
and it was so close, right? In losing John Lewis. So to your point of going back to, that moment of meeting your CQ family,
yeah,
and we felt it, and a lot of us on this live felt it. Some of us wanted to be there but could not be there. But we felt that you guys were representing us. We were like, they're representing us. We're so proud. And as I was saying at the top of this, it's a pivotal moment. 2020, this is a pivotal moment.
yeah,
The fact that we had that moment where we saw on TV
yeah,
a man, not 1, 2, 3, but almost 9 minutes,
yeah, yeah,
to people who have even seen other things on camera, because now we have social media, now we have cameras. It
yeah.
stopped the nation. It stopped.
The world. I
It stopped.
mean,
Yes,
but
you're right.
yeah,
It stopped the
yeah,
world. You're
yeah,
right. Thank you. It stopped the world. And for even people who didn't normally see it, they knew that I was wrong. And
yeah,
so
yeah,
that moment has continued these protests, and then to have the march happen around the same time, that has to be, as I said, you talked about those two moments as being pivotal, as being a change and how you felt like being there. And I actually even, so thank you for also sharing your photos. Even watching the photos, it was heartwarming and at the same time hopeful. And I don't
yeah.
know if
That,
you have that. Do you feel that this time, we talked about the Million Man March, do you
yeah.
feel that this time that is somehow different?
I, I can. Well, I'm no expert, everybody. So I just want. Yeah, I'm not. But I'm going to be 48 in December, and over the course of my life, from like I've from what I've seen and what I've experienced, that's what I reference like anybody. So it's not saying it's right or wrong. It's just from what I've experienced. I
Mhm.
can't say the hope that I have, and I shared this with uh, some of my friends here in Detroit who didn't go, but I said my hope, not that I'm old, but when we got there to Black Lives Matter Plaza um, Thursday night, and Kaya and I were walking up, and I'm like, man, we're the brothers. Because it was, one, it was a lot of young people, which,
Good.
and there, it was truly, I felt like in some respects, all the civil rights leaders and those known and unknown that fought for a better life for a lot of us. I was just thinking, I hope they're looking down with knowing that not everything's perfect, but with some ounce that the needle has moved, some ounce of hope, because this younger generation who I think like others well, they're not voting in the numbers that we need to see, or are they engaged? From what I saw, these cats are heavily engaged because the impression I got was that they looking at us, anyone older than them, and especially way older than us, as y'all done messed up. Step aside. We're gonna take care of this because they have friends, they have they have blended families, they have friends who don't look like them, that they engage in healthy conversations, they engage in relationships, they engage in marriages, they engage in children, and they look around like, what are y'all doing? We still got to deal with this? Here, let me put down this TikTok video and let me figure out, you know. So that does give me hope. And it, man, it does give me hope. I know it probably doesn't sound like it now because I'm thinking on the life experiences I've had and the frustrations I've had where it doesn't. I could have 7 degrees and come across the wrong police officer who could be and just looks at me as another black man. Don't care. I've had people I know who are um, some colleagues of mine, some professional colleagues of mine who I love dearly, and who are white. One's Latino. We were out and had an experience, and they looked at me like, dude, it was like it hit them in the face that
Right.
I said, yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, dude. So when I saw those young people and saw them like fight, and this one thing, the photos I put up today. I ask everybody who's watching now, or will go back and rewatch it,
Hmm.
go back and look at some of those because I caught stuff that I didn't catch
Yes.
when I was there taking them. And there's one where I got what's that the Washington Monument. Forgive me with my
Yes.
bad history, but if
Yes.
you look and there's the reflecting pool, and I was looking at it, and there's this white dude there with his mask, and he's got his gray shirt on, and he's got good trouble. And then there's other, John Lewis's famous quote, and the one I did get some comedy flack on, but it wasn't me. It was this white dude wearing his Black Lives Matter mask, holding the Trump flush Trump down the toilet. So, but I'm like, if you really go through those photos and look, and I just shot them with my phone, but if you really go through those, you will see the diversity. The group of Mexicans who had in Spanish uh, a sign. Unfortunately, I sucked in Spanish in high school. That's why I draw pictures for a living. But if my Spanish teacher's on here, forgive me, Mrs. Hill. But they were there supporting because until America comes to terms with America's original sin of slavery,
Hmm.
and I'd even challenge that. Um, not in the, I don't want to get anybody ticked off or looking at me like, well, what do you mean? Well, as I described to a colleague or former colleague of mine who had told me to go back to my own country, that's a whole nother conversation. Yeah, somebody I've known for over 15 years, and I said, well, all due respect, man, this ain't your country either. If you really want to be real about it, white Europeans came into this country and forced Native Americans into an
Enslaved.
yeah. So I'd say look at really study those pictures, and you will see the faces, you will see hope, and you
Hmm.
will see change.
Wow.
Wait, I just realized it sounded like Obama. You will see hope. Sorry, but
Hope and
anyway,
change.
yeah, but yeah. Sorry to answer your question. It was just moving, and the more that since I've been back, I know I promised people I would put together. Like
Hmm.
I took a lot of video. It's been a challenge for me, not just work and homeschooling and everything, but I've gone to those photos, and sometimes I sit and I'm just staring off and like, dude, for me as a black man, I told one of my family members, like, dude, I feel like an endangered species sometimes, like I'm being hunted. Like, I'm here and I'm like, can't you see me?
Mhm.
Like, can't, what is it? Why can't the other,
It's
anyway,
interesting that you say
yeah,
that. So
so,
I have two nephews, and I remember when their first incident, when they realized that how
yeah,
people look at them differently. And my nephew went into a beauty salon, and he had been in there several times with his mother. And my nephew he's 28 now. He's like 6'5" and 300 pounds. So even as a kid, he was probably like six feet. And he went to go pick up some hair products for my sister. And we got a call that she called the cops on him and said that he tried to steal something earlier. And I remember all of us went up there, and she said, I have him on tape. And we asked her to show us the tape. And it wasn't him. It was a skinny kid. It wasn't even him. But I remember seeing how he changed that day.
yeah,
I
yeah,
remember seeing how he changed. And so I think a lot of us have those experiences, whether it's somebody following us in the store, somebody pulling us over,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
and you talked about your son, so I definitely understand that, because I was like, wow, this is the day that it changed, that someone saw him that way. So what I want
Yeah.
to ask you, um, so what would be your ask? Because we did talk about why we march, why we vote. What would be your
Yeah.
ask to folks on the live, or even your family and friends, about voting? Like, so what actions are you planning on taking moving forward? And what would you ask people to join
Yeah.
you in, or what would that request
Well,
be?
actually, I would, first off, I'd say do what you're comfortable with in this environment. Just like, everything, well, it shouldn't be a risk, but there's a level of risk now in our COVID environment. I took a greater risk going on a march. All of us from CQ did. So that was a risk I was willing to accept. Um, when it comes to voting, that's something very important to me, and and doing what you can. So I've actually, or I should say we, but specifically I, have already been doing uh, uh, items or things. President Obama was the first presidential um, election or run that I volunteered on locally, and I was like, yo, I'm sorry, you want me to go canvas out in the heat? That's when I got bougie. I was like, can I just man some phones?
Can I just
So
donate?
yeah, so I donated money, and I did that in uh, uh, man phones, and we're doing the calls. Uh, did I've signed up and I've done that for the Biden Harris campaign. We've talked about, and we're trying to figure out how we can drive some of our elders to the polls if need be.
Yes.
I've signed up for um, mail-in voting because I don't want to, catch it. But with everything going on, with Agent Orange trying to slow down the post office
Mm-hmm.
in mail, I'm like, man, dude, should we go in? And as Michelle Obama said, if I got to pack a lunch and bring a book, and I'll do it because I think our ancestors, and I'm not just talking our ancestors of color, but
Yes,
if
we
you
are.
look back in the civil rights movement, you know, this is something that it's tragic, and I'm trying not to curse because I actually have family members that said they were gonna so later on, and I saw some of my actual cousins, and I think my aunt's on here, so I'm trying not to curse because no matter how old I am, I'm still scared of them. So um, there are a lot of our white brothers and sisters, our Latin brothers and sisters, our Asian brothers and sisters who get why this is important, who died, who literally died, you know, just for something as simple as voting because they know the impact that makes. And I think that's lost on our, well, not just our younger generation. I think that's just lost on a lot of people. And I can get it that if like my mom one time after my parents divorced, our mom, like, she had to work three jobs and she's trying to support, me and my brother and sister, us three knucklehead kids, and trying to keep us safe. So I can get why some people are like, yo, it's just enough to get out the door in the morning. We don't get paid time off. It's not a holiday, which I really think it should be. Paid holiday for every U.S. citizen to go vote. But that's important, and why it's important to me is because it's change. It's like put up or shut up. When I have some friends who are the cat that's in the office right now, and man, I don't like him. I don't like some of the message he's sending to the world about us. I don't like, and I'm like, well, did you vote? No, man, vote. I'm like, stop talking.
Thank you.
Uh,
Yes.
no, no. I'm like, look, not every, not every candidate that you vote for will win. It's I voted for. I'll put my politics out there, but I've pretty much voted for the Democratic Party since my first presidential election, which was Bill Clinton.
Okay.
And Al Gore didn't win. John Kerry didn't win against W. It's part of life. It's going to be winners and losers, but you got to stay in the fight.
I think
And
that's
it's not,
key.
yeah,
I think
it's
that's
not just at that level.
because when I think about 2016, there were so many folks who said they didn't vote because they just couldn't, vote for Hillary, and they couldn't vote for Trump, and you have to make a decision.
Yeah,
So I think it's really important to get the message. Is what you just said. Maybe your candidate will not win, but then when it comes to terms of you having things to say about what's not working, we have to vote. We have to vote, and our voices do
yeah,
count. And not only this
yeah,
election this year is very important, but we also have to vote locally. And we
yeah,
talk about all of these policy
yeah,
changes and wanting justice, and we have to have the right, folks in the court, in the local government to make these changes. So,
yeah,
that's what I've been saying to some of my, some of my friends are just like, and I think there are people who have never voted because they didn't think their votes changed, and I think there are people who are just like, I don't like the choices.
well,
Well, you have to make a choice.
yeah. Well, for those out there that feel like that and like what's in it for me, or it, I, and this, and I won't say the name to protect because I'm still related to this person in my family. But I have a family member, and that kind of was just kind of blasé about voting. And I think it was when, gosh, I think it was when George Bush, uh, W. Bush was president, and this family member hadn't voted, and it was just hit or miss, spotty, but had missed the presidential election, and was like, I don't, it really doesn't affect me. Later on, we're talking, and he was like, whoa, my taxes, something with his taxes or something that impacted him.
Yes.
And so I'm very well in tune. That's just how I was raised, and I'm a political junkie and a social activist junkie. So I'm just sitting here. I wasn't being like pointing, but I was just like, really? So what happened? And this family member explained that something with their federal taxes uh, was off, and so we're talking, and I realized it was back to a decision that had been made by that president. And I was like, so, how you could have, could have impacted that by voting. Not saying, maybe your candidate wouldn't have won, but at least I feel like okay, at least you could, if you're going to bitch and complain, at least you can bitch and complain, be like, you know
Yes.
what,
At least be
man?
a part of the process. Make a decision
Yeah,
and be a part of the process.
yeah.
I think
It's
too.
so personal.
Yeah, I think too. I've talked to some friends who are voting, yeah, for 45 because of one issue, of one thing, and I think we have to look at what our personal interests are, our family interest,
Yeah,
community, and we can't just stop at self-interest. We have to think
yeah,
about the community. We have to think about international policies, domestic policies. So, But if we can get people who have never voted and to see that their vote counts, I think that's a big part of it too. So,
Yeah.
so so I don't know if you have any last words. I am gonna try to save
No.
this and come back
Yeah,
because
yeah,
we're having
yeah.
a great conversation,
Okay.
but I don't
Oh
want
my God.
to
I'm
stop.
so sorry. Yeah. I was trying to fight off the tears, but yeah, but no, my last words just be like, let's talk, do as far as what anyone can do for this upcoming election season. It's not just now. Vote for, I might think, vote for everything from dog catcher to sheriff. Your local, be involved. And if you don't know something, think about how much time. Be, I love Derek and our club quarantine, but think about how much time all of us spend jamming to music. All while we're doing that, if there's an election coming up, you know what you can do on your other iPad or your fourth laptop? Who's this candidate running for local dog catcher? I don't and do what you can within your level of comfort.
Mhm.
You know, I'm not like a professional Uber driver, and the thought of picking up people and taking them to the polls right now kind of, but I'm like, you know what? If there's some elderly person out there who's like, I got to vote in this and their family won't do it, yeah, we've talked about it. I'm like, I'll disinfect the hell out of my car to do that. And then and then one other thing is that I would parting words. If you know any younger people, like if you know any first time voters
Yes.
that are kind of like yeah, feeling like disconnected, talk to them and try to get at their not saying in a negative way, but try to be at their level of like, what is it that is making you feel disenfranchised? What
Right.
is it that's making you feel, I had this conversation with my stepdaughter who was disappointed. Her first election was this last one. She voted for Hillary. Agent Orange got in and she was, I don't want to vote. And I was like, whoa, why? And
Mhm.
I was like, so I have a feeling of why. And I got to her, what was in you that's making you not want to do this? And so I would encourage people, if there's a young person, talk to them and get a sense
That's
of,
great.
so yeah.
Thank you. So
All
I
right.
think we are close to time. So because my
I'm so
internet,
sorry.
no, it's not. No, that's not the problem. It's the internet on my side. But because it's pausing a bit, guys, I just want to make sure I
We
save
got
this and then come back.
okay.
So please come back. And Sierra, I'm looking for you when we get
Sierra.
back.
Yeah.
And guys, one of the things I didn't say in the beginning, I've been asking all the questions, and it was great to have Bryan talk about how they connected and his experience. But also, I would love to get you guys questions, or if you have anything, so please put them in the question box when we get back. And so I'm gonna save this and come back. Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.